The hat slipped over Severus Snape's eyes and the world disappeared. For a moment, there was only darkness and wool, and the rustle of old enchantment breathing against his ears. The great hall had been too bright before, a cavern of golden plates and floating candles, of banners like battle standards and children laughing too loudly, because they did not yet understand that laughter could be used as a weapon. He had felt every stare as if it were a needle. He had felt the patched cuffs of his robes, the sharpness of his elbows, the oil in his hair, the memory of Tobias Snape's voice following him all the way from Spinners and like coal smoke clinging to his skin. Then the hat spoke inside his head. "Ah, pygmy." Severus went rigid. "Not often I find so many locked doors in one so young." He did not answer. He had learned early that silence was sometimes the only piece of dignity a person could keep. His mother had taught him spells and whispers. His father had taught him silence with slammed doors and thrown bottles. Between them, Severus had learned that everything powerful had to be hidden. "Clever, certainly," murmured the hat. "Hungry, too. Ambition, yes. A taste for secrecy. A mind that would cut itself to pieces before admitting pain. Slytherin would know what to do with you." Severus's heart lurched toward that word with the force of a hook through flesh. Slytherin. The house his mother had spoken of with a tired, bitter pride. The house of the subtle and the great, of old magic and old names. He had pictured it for years as a refuge, a green-lit chamber beneath the lake where no one from Cokeworth could reach him, where his father's shouting would be nothing but a muggle noise drowned by water and stone. Across the hall, beyond the brim's darkness, he knew Lily was waiting. She had been sorted first. "Gryffindor," the hat had cried almost the instant it touched her red hair, and the whole table beneath the scarlet banners had erupted into cheers. Severus had watched her run to them, bright as a flame escaping his cupped hands. She had turned back once, searching for him, and he had tried to make his face say that it did not matter. Of course it did not matter. Houses were only houses. Tables were only tables. But his throat had closed. "Slytherin will give you power," the hat continued. "It will give you allies who understand the uses of resentment. It will sharpen what is already sharp in you. You would rise there." Severus's fingers tightened on the edge of the stool. "And her?" he thought before he could stop himself. The hat's voice changed. Not softer exactly. Older. The girl? Severus hated the sudden heat in his cheeks. He hated that even in the privacy of his skull he could not keep her unnamed. He hated the stupid, impossible fact that after everything, after Petunia's spying, after the train, after Potter's sneer and Black's lazy cruelty, his first fear was not being powerless. It was being left behind. "She is not yours to be sorted with," said the hat. "I know that. Do you?" The great hall stretched around him. He could hear the scrape of benches, the whisper of students losing patience, the faint sigh of Minerva McGonagall, standing close beside the stool. Somewhere, Potter was probably smirking. Somewhere, Black was probably waiting for a punchline. Somewhere, Lily was holding her breath. Severus saw, as clearly as if the hat had lowered a lantern into his mind, the narrow street of Spinners end under rain. He saw himself at 9 years old, hiding behind a crumbling wall while Lily made a flower open and close in her palm. He saw her laughing not at him but because of him, as though he had given her the world by giving it a name. Magic. Witch. Hogwarts. He had been prince and prophet then. The boy who knew what she was before anyone else did. Then he saw the compartment on the train. Potter's bright arrogance. Blacks. Their careless claim on Gryffindor as if bravery were a toy already bought for them. He had snapped back because he could not help himself. He had wounded because he could not bear being wounded first. "Gryffindor," he had said with disdain, as though the word were foolish, as though it had not just stolen Lily from him. "You have courage," said the hat. Severus nearly laughed aloud. it would have been an ugly sound. No. Oh yes. Not clean courage. Not the sort that shines in stories. But there is courage in enduring, and courage in wanting, and courage in standing before a life already chosen for you and choosing otherwise. Slytherin, Severus thought, but the word had lost certainty. It sounded suddenly like his mother speaking of things that had failed her. It sounded like the cold pride of people who might welcome his blood but not his poverty, his name but not his need. It sounded like a room where every insult would be polished before it was used. The hat waited. He could still choose the familiar dream. He could still go where everyone expected him to go. He could sit beneath green banners and tell himself that Lily would come around, that she would see, that friendship could survive 4 tables in 7 years and whatever lay coiled in the shadows of old wizarding families. But the hall was loud, and Lily was far away. And Severus was 11 years old, which meant his pride was enormous and fragile and not yet stronger than love. Not away from her, he thought, furious at himself. Not yet. The hat seemed to breathe. Then let us see what fire does with shadow. The brim lifted. Candlelight stabbed his eyes. Gryffindor. The word crashed through the great hall like a plate dropped in a silent room. For half a second, no one cheered. Severus sat perfectly still, the hat being removed from his head, and felt the impossible shape of the world rearranging around him. He heard a startled murmur ripple along the Slytherin table. He saw a pale boy with white blonde hair, Malfoy, perhaps, one of those polished names from the train platform, stare with his mouth slightly open. He saw McGonagall's brows rise, not in disapproval, but in something close to astonishment. Then Lily leapt to her feet. She clapped first, fierce and delighted, and her applause struck the silence like a spark in dry grass. A few Gryffindors joined, then more, uncertain at first, then louder because Gryffindors distrusted hesitation almost as much as cowardice. The table filled with noise. Someone whooped. Someone banged a goblet. The red and gold banners seemed to breathe overhead. Severus slid from the stool. He had imagined his walk to Slytherin 100 times. He had imagined composure, dignity, perhaps even a few approving nods from older students who recognized in him some hidden worth. He had not imagined crossing the hall toward Gryffindor while half the school stared as though the hat had placed a snake among lions for its own amusement. He kept his chin high because lowering it would have been surrender. Lily made room beside her. "You did it," she whispered as he sat. "I did not do anything," Severus muttered. "You chose. I was sorted." She looked at him with an expression too bright to bear. "You chose." Across from them, James Potter leaned back, dark hair already behaving as if rules were things that happened to other people. Beside him, Sirius Black had an elbow on the table and a smile full of wicked assessment. Remus Lupin, thin and quiet, watched with wary kindness. Peter Pettigrew looked between everyone as though trying to determine where laughter would be safest. "Well," James said, drawing the word out. "Snivelus in Gryffindor. That's unexpected." Lily's face hardened at once. "Don't call him that." Severus's hands curled beneath the table. He should have answered. He had answers stored like blades. Potter's name was already a target in his mind, bright and waiting. But the heat of Lily's defense reached him first, and behind it something worse. The knowledge that if he struck now, here, in front of all of them, he would confirm what Potter already believed. That he was greasy, mean, and misplaced. A mistake in borrowed robes. Sirius tilted his head. "Maybe the hat sneezed. Maybe it saw something you missed," Lily snapped. That earned a few laughs from nearby older students. James flushed, and Severus felt a small private pleasure at the sight. It was not noble. It was not Gryffindor. But it was warm. The feast appeared in a thunder of abundance. Golden dishes filled themselves with roast meats, potatoes crisp and fat, bowls of peas shining with butter, treacle tart, pumpkin juice, more food than Severus had ever seen laid out for people who were not pretending to celebrate Christmas. For a moment, hunger conquered humiliation. He ate quickly, defensively, his shoulders hunched as if someone might remove the plate. Lily noticed. She always noticed. But for once she said nothing. The boys opposite him did. "Slow down," James said. "Food's not running away." Severus looked up with a strip of chicken between his fingers. "How would you know? Has anything ever had cause to flee from you?" Sirius barked a laugh before he could stop himself. James shot him a betrayed look. Lily hid a smile behind her goblet. Severus returned to his food. Pulse quickened, not with fear now, but with the first dangerous taste of survival. Gryffindor was not safe. That much was clear already. It was loud and careless and full of boys who mistook cruelty for charm. But Lily was beside him, her sleeve brushing his, and the scarlet banner above them made his black hair gleam faintly red. At the staff table, Albus Dumbledore watched the new Gryffindor with his fingers steepled beneath his chin. His blue eyes, usually so merry that many mistook them for harmless, had gone very still. Beside him, Horace Slughorn leaned toward McGonagall. "A Snape in Gryffindor," he murmured, as if tasting an unfamiliar wine. "Eileen Prince's boy, unless I am very much mistaken." Well, that is curious." McGonagall's mouth tightened. She was still watching Severus, who had just answered some remark of Potter's with a sentence sharp enough to draw blood without raising his voice. "Curious," she said, "is one word." At the Slytherin table, Lucius Malfoy, newly made prefect and already practiced in looking older than his years, regarded the thin boy in red and gold with mild distaste. He had expected the princewoman's son to come to them. There had been whispers among certain families, faint but traceable. A half-blood, yes, and poor, but with a mind worth cultivating and grievances worth directing. Slytherin knew what to do with lonely boys who hated the world. Gryffindor, unfortunately, sometimes taught them to hate it less. Lucius lifted his goblet and drank, his expression unreadable. The first night in Gryffindor Tower should have been a triumph. It was not. The common room was too warm, too loud, too red. Students sprawled over chairs as if they owned every inch of the castle. The fire roared in a hearth big enough to roast a man. Tapestry showed lions, knights, charging horses, ancient duels, all of it dramatic and absurd. Severus stood just inside the portrait hole with his trunk at his feet and felt with sudden sick clarity that he had entered enemy territory wearing its colors. Lily touched his arm. "It's brilliant, isn't it?" He looked at a suit of armor holding a lance beneath a moth-eaten banner. "It is excessive," she laughed. "You think everything is excessive. Most things are. Come on, we should find seats." Before Severus could move, James Potter stepped into his path with Sirius at his shoulder. It was not quite a challenge. Not yet. It was the beginning of one, the testing of ground before a duel. "So," James said, "how does it feel?" Severus stared at him. "You will need to be more specific. I realize that may prove difficult." "No, Remus, sitting nearby with a book unopened on his lap, lowered his eyes. His mouth twitched. Sirius grinned outright. James narrowed his eyes. "Being a Gryffindor, I have endured worse for longer." Lily folded her arms. "James, move!" The use of his first name startled him. Pleased him too, obviously, though he tried to hide it by rolling his shoulders. "I'm only being welcoming." "You're being a prat." Several older students laughed. James' face reddened again, and Severus felt the fragile balance of the room shift. Lily had power here already, though she did not know it. Beauty was part of it, but not the whole. She had a way of standing as if fairness were a physical thing, and she had planted her feet upon it. People liked that. Gryffindors especially liked that. James stepped aside with a theatrical bow. "Welcome to Gryffindor, Snape." There was a blade hidden in the courtesy, but Severus accepted it with a cold nod. "My condolences on the house standards." Sirius laughed so hard he nearly choked. That was the first mistake. It was not the insult. Potter could have survived that. It was Sirius laughing at Potter even briefly because of something Severus had said. Boys like James Potter could forgive many things, but embarrassment was not among them. The dormitory was worse. 5 beds waited beneath red hangings. James claimed one by the window. Sirius threw himself onto the next with the easy grace of someone raised in houses full of expensive furniture and no fear of breaking it. Remus chose the bed nearest the fire, quietly, as if apologizing to the room for needing one at all. Peter took the bed beside James. Severus was left with the last, near the door, where anyone entering or leaving would pass close enough to disturb him. He said nothing. He unpacked his trunk with careful hands. His possessions looked pitiful against the polished wood and clean sheets. Second-hand books, a battered cauldron, quills wrapped in string, robes folded with his mother's sharp economy. At the bottom lay the old potions text Eileen had given him, its margins filled with corrections in her cramped hand. Severus touched the cover once quickly, then slid it beneath his pillow. Sirius saw. What's that? A book. Obviously. Which book? One with words too long for you. James snorted. Sirius smiled, but his eyes had changed. They were gray, bright, and aristocratic in a way Severus already despised. You talk a lot for someone who looks like he got dragged out of a chimney. Severus turned. You look remarkably proud for someone whose greatest achievement is being born into upholstery. Remus made a strangled sound into his sleeve. Peter stared in terror and admiration. James sat up. Leave his family out of it. Severus's lip curled. Did I strike a noble nerve? Sirius' smile vanished. For a second, something raw moved across his face. Not hurt exactly. Recognition. Careful, he said softly. Severus heard the warning under the word, and because he was 11, wounded, exhausted, and far from home, he stepped toward it instead of away. Or what? The room chilled. James reached for his wand on the bedside table. Severus's was already in his hand. He had drawn it without thinking, as naturally as raising a fist. Lily was not here. No teachers. No hall full of witnesses. Just 4 boys and a door, and the first line of a war being written in breath. Remus stood suddenly. Daunt. It was not loud. It did not need to be. There was something in Remus Lupin's voice that made everyone pause, some thread of pain pulled too tight to ignore. James looked at him. Sirius looked away first. Severus lowered his wand by an inch. Not because he was afraid, he told himself, but because Remus had not mocked him yet. That made him unusual. It did not make him a friend. Fine, James said, flinging himself back onto his bed. First night. Truce. Noi. Gandhi. I was not aware we were at war, Severus said. Sirius pulled his curtains half shut. You will be. Severus lay awake long after the others slept. The castle breathed around him. Pipes groaned. Wind pressed against stone. Somewhere far below, water moved in the lake like a vast animal turning in dreams. He could hear Peter snoring softly, James muttering nonsense, Sirius breathing in the controlled rhythm of someone pretending deeper sleep than he had found. Remus was silent. Severus stared at the canopy above him and thought of Slytherin. Had the boys there already forgotten him? Or were they speaking his name with disgust? Blood traitor would not fit. He had no old pure line to betray. Fool, perhaps. Coward. Mudblood lover, though Lily's blood had not seemed dirty when her magic bloomed in sunlight. The word came from memory, not yet from his mouth. He had heard it from older children in Diagon Alley, from his mother once in a fit of bitterness she immediately regretted, from whispers around families who believed magic could curdle if shared too widely. Severus had held the word like a stone, not because he wanted to throw it at Lily, never Lily, but because stones were useful when one was small and often cornered. Now, it seemed heavier. He turned on his side and pressed a hand beneath the pillow, feeling the outline of his mother's book. Gryffindor, the hat had said. He had not become brave. He had not become good. He had simply followed Lily across a hall. But perhaps all great betrayals of destiny began as something embarrassingly small. Morning brought no mercy. By breakfast, half the school knew his name. By lunch, versions of the sorting had multiplied like rats. The hat had argued for 20 minutes. The hat had shouted Slytherin first and changed its mind. Severus had begged for Gryffindor aloud. Lily had bewitched the hat. Dumbledore had interfered. Severus was secretly the heir of Godric Gryffindor. Severus was secretly a squib, and the hat had panicked. He endured these rumors with the grim contempt of a prince in exile. Classes began, and with them came the first true revelation. He was better than most of them. Not at everything. Flying was a public humiliation so sharp it deserved its own locked room in memory. The broom assigned to him lay stubbornly in the grass, while Potter shot into his hand as if eager to join an old friend. Sirius did almost as well. Even Lily, laughing nervously, managed to rise a few feet with her hair blazing in the autumn light. Severus kicked off too hard, tilted sideways, and landed in a heap that made half the class laugh. James's laugh was loudest. Graceful Snape. Severus stood with mud on his robes and murder in his eyes. Madam Hooke intervened before his wand could leave his sleeve. But in charms he learned fast. In transfiguration, though Potter had instinct and Lily had elegance, Severus had patience. He watched McGonagall's wand, listened to the stress she placed on syllables, noticed the difference between force and precision. By the end of the lesson, his match had not become a needle, but it had narrowed, silvered at one end, and drawn from McGonagall a look of unwilling approval. In potions, he changed. The dungeon classroom lay beneath the castle like a memory of Slytherin he had been denied. It smelled of damp stone, flame, crushed roots, and possibility. Severus sat at a bench beside Lily because she insisted, and because no one else wanted him. James and Sirius took the bench behind them, which Severus considered proof that the universe had a vulgar sense of humor. Professor Slughorn moved through the room in a velvet waistcoat, beaming at names before faces. He paused at Lily, charmed by her brightness, then at Severus, intrigued by the shape of his nose, the darkness of his gaze, the half-remembered echo of Eileen Prince. "Snape," he said. "Any relation to Eileen?" "My mother," Severus answered. "Ah. Gifted girl. Quiet. Very sharp indeed. Let us see if you have inherited her touch." He had. The potion was simple. A cure for boils. Nettles, snake fangs, horned slugs, porcupine quills removed from heat before adding. Most students followed the instructions as if obedience alone could save them. Severus read them once, then began making small corrections in his head. Crush, not chop, the fangs. Stir slower after the nettles. Lower the flame before the color turned fully blue. He did not know how he knew. He simply saw the potion's intention, the way another child might see where a thrown ball would land. Lily worked carefully beside him, biting her lip. "Is this right?" He glanced over. Too hot. She adjusted at once. "Thanks." Behind them, James whispered, "Teacher already, is he?" Severus ignored him. That was Lily's influence, though he would rather have swallowed bubotuber pus than admit it. At the end of class, Slughorn inspected cauldrons. Potter's was acceptable. Sirius had turned a suspicious gray, but had not exploded. Remus's was good. Lily's was very good. Severus's was perfect. Slughorn's smile widened with genuine pleasure. "Excellent. Excellent, my boy. 10 points to Gryffindor." The room went quiet. 10 points. To Gryffindor. Because of Severus Snape. He felt the words settle like a crown made of thorns. At the Gryffindor table that evening, older students slapped him on the back hard enough to make him nearly drop his fork. Lily beamed. Remus congratulated him politely. Peter looked impressed. Sirius regarded him with reluctant amusement. James sulked for 7 full minutes. Then he leaned across the table. Suppose you're useful after all. Severus did not look up. Try not to strain yourself with generosity. Try not to drown in your own hair. Try not to mistake volume for wit. Sirius covered his mouth. Remus looked at the ceiling. Lily sighed, but there was laughter in it now, not anger. Could you both not? No, James and Severus said together. That made the table laugh, and for one peculiar moment, Severus found himself included in the laughter rather than targeted by it. The sensation was so unfamiliar that he did not know what to do with his face. He settled for scowling, which was safer. Weeks became months. Autumn burned itself out against the castle windows. Rain turned the ground silver. The lake darkened. Lessons deepened. Rivalries sharpened into patterns. James Potter remained insufferable. He strutted through corridors as if applause were weather. He broke rules with a confidence Severus found obscene. He was brilliant in ways that seemed unfair because they cost him so little. Charms came to him with a flick and a grin. Transfiguration bent for him. Flying adored him. Teachers reprimanded him with the weary restraint reserved for boys expected to become admirable once they exhausted their need to be idiots. Sirius Black was worse in some ways and better in others. Worse because his cruelty was more elegant. Better because it was less careless. He noticed what hurt. Sometimes he used it. Sometimes, strangely, he did not. There were moments when Severus caught him staring at letters delivered by black owls, his face shuttered and cold. Moments when James would clap him on the shoulder and Sirius would return from wherever he had gone inside himself, with a laugh too bright to be honest. Remus Lupin remained a mystery. He disappeared once a month and returned pale, bruised, and quieter than before. James and Sirius accepted the absences with exaggerated ignorance, which meant they knew something. Peter knew too, though he wore secrets badly. Like shoes several sizes too large. Severus noticed. Severus noticed everything. But he was in Gryffindor now, and Gryffindor's secrets were guarded by noise, loyalty, and closed ranks. He told himself he did not care. Lily changed most of all. Not in her nature. She was still Lily, quick to laugh, quicker to defend, fierce in class, kind when kindness was deserved, and sometimes when it was not. But Hogwarts gave her room. She unfolded. Magic did not merely happen around her now. It answered her. Professors praised her. Girls from their year gathered around her. Older students knew her name. She was not the odd Evans girl from Cokeworth anymore. She was Lily Evans of Gryffindor, bright enough to be seen from any table. Severus was proud of her. He was also terrified. The fear made him mean on days he did not intend meanness. When she sat with Mary MacDonald after Charms instead of meeting him in the library, he told her Mary's laugh could curdle milk. When she praised James's transfigured snuff box because it had only one ear instead of 3, Severus muttered that even trolls occasionally hit doorways by accident. When she told him he did not have to hate everyone who liked people he hated, he replied that her standards for companionship had always been dangerously sentimental. She did not speak to him for 2 days after that. Those 2 days were worse than any detention. On the 3rd evening, he found her in the library, surrounded by books on defensive charms, her hair tied back with a ribbon the color of autumn leaves. He stood at the end of the table for nearly a minute before she looked up. What? What? I was unkind. Her eyebrows rose. Was that an apology? It was an accurate statement. Severus. He swallowed. I am sorry. The words were stiff, badly made, and humiliating, but they were real. Lily studied him for a long moment. Why do you do that? Apologize? Push. Bite. Awe. Make everything ugly before anyone else can. Nah. His fingers tightened around the strap of his bag. The library smelled of dust and ink. Somewhere between shelves, Madame Pince hissed at a second year. Severus wanted to say something cutting. He wanted to retreat into contempt. Instead, he looked at the books